Hello and welcome to Food Allergy Canada's webinar on managing food allergy in high school. It's a timely topic in the summer as likely many of you are about to start high school this fall, and we hope to provide you with helpful tips, advice, and strategies to stay safe in this exciting new environment. But before we start, a reminder that this presentation is for informational purposes only. If you have health-related questions, we recommend that you speak directly to your doctor. My name is Kyle Dine, and I was once in high school myself with a picture there to prove it and proof that I once really loved hair gel. I just finished my master's degree this year, so the topic of transitioning to a new school environment is very fresh on my mind. I'm personally allergic to peanuts, tree nuts, egg, fish, shellfish, and mustard. And I've been a consultant for Food Allergy Canada for the past decade. I'm also an educator. I perform at schools all across North America performing allergy education assemblies. And lastly, I founded allergytranslation.com. It's a site that provides translation cards to travelers with allergy, soon to be rebranded to Equal Eats. Well, enough about that high school shot there. Today's agenda, we're going to dive into what it's like to go to high school with a food allergy. And we're going to go through an overview, what to expect in that environment, and how to prepare accordingly. We have an incredible panel tonight that are going to be giving their tips, their thoughts, their experiences, and then they're going to be fielding your questions as well. So hopefully you can see there's a question box on your console. At any time during the webinar, please feel free to write in your question, and we will try to address it in the question period. And if not, my colleague Carla will be monitoring questions and trying to get back to you in real time, or we'll get back to you later on through email from the Food Allergy Canada office. So please feel free to start thinking of your questions now. But before we get into all of the information, we're going to start off with a poll question. So first question is, what best describes you or your child, depending on who's attending? In September, they will be either in elementary or middle school, about to enter high school, going back to high school, or other. So just to get a lay of the land, who's attending tonight's webinar. All right, let's see who's here today. So, wow, that's great. 47% about to enter high school, 26% in middle school or elementary school, and 16% already going back. They've done this before, and 11% other. Well, no matter where you are, welcome everybody. We hope that you get something out of this webinar. So, diving into high school with food allergy, if you look at the big picture, this is just another big stage in the process of youth taking on more responsibility for their own food allergy. At each of these stages, key management strategies should be transferred more and more from the parent to the child, and whether it's reading ingredients, carrying epinephrine auto-injectors, informing others, their friends, knowing the emergency procedure of how to respond in an anaphylactic emergency. Throughout this continuum, it's important that responsibility is getting shifted more and more to youth. So today we focus on the high school years, which are a critical time for gaining independence in managing one's own health condition on their own. It's a very, very key time. A little overview on food allergy in high schools. So in Canada, there's 3,400 high schools, 2,000 more, which are a mix of high school and elementary/middle school. I know in Quebec, it's common for kids to go to high school in grades 7 to 11. So it's a bit of a mixed system across the country, with about 1.42 million high school students and approximately 98,000 overall with food allergy in high school setting. Obviously, we know that it's a larger school size in elementary school, and there's more staff overall in those schools. When we look at school policies, this is a really great starting point, especially if you're entering high school, of becoming aware, what are the policies, what are the guidelines in your province? And this really helps with the understanding of what expectations you should have on staff and what expectations you should have for students, for your child or yourself in high school. So these guidelines and policies, they can vary through province or territory. So it's important that you check them out for your individual case. And if you go to Food Allergy Canada's website, just search national school policies, and we have a breakdown by province. It's very easy to get a good snapshot of what it's like there. Examples are Sabrina's Law in Ontario, which has been around from the mid 2000s, and then Bill 201 in Alberta, which is actually getting launched in this January. So very exciting. What to expect? So most of us, many of us here have been to, we know at least elementary school, and it's an environment where teachers might be storing auto injectors for you, whereas in high school, there's more of an expectation you carry your own auto injector. With elementary, there's more monitored lunches, whether it's in a classroom, monitored cafeteria. High school, unmonitored, most common. In grade school, most teachers know who you are. You're not really rotating around that much, where in high school, most teachers may not know you. You might have several teachers, so that's a big difference. And also just where you store your things, it's common to have a homeroom in elementary school, where a locker is most common where you would store things in high school. So just some of the differences in the environment. And I like this, just looking at a floor plan. It's a little intimidating looking at the one to the right, where this is just a sample of how much bigger it can be. But I think really the key point here is it can get complicated just in a new environment. And if you think of, if you just need to find the school nurse, this becomes a little bit more difficult. So it's important to have a plan. Even if your locker, that could be 2 floors below where your classroom is. So it's really important that you're thinking about these things. It's important that you're carrying your epinephrine with you at all times, because it is such a bigger environment in most cases. So there's a lot of new scenarios, and we're going to be covering these in a lot more detail throughout the webinar, whether it's new eating locations, the introduction of vending machines, which might have allergens in them. We'll talk more about sports and clubs, social issues with new friends, dances, semi-formals, formals, trips, exchanges, all of that. So just some ideas of potential questions that you might have. Feel free to start writing them in. But these are some of the key themes that we're going to be talking about tonight. But let's go to another poll question before we kind of dig any further into it, where the question is, what's your biggest concern about managing food allergy in a high school? Is it new friends, the new environment, perhaps it's new foods, being different, that social aspect, or other? All right, let's take a look. So the new environment overall, okay, new foods a little bit, being different a little bit, and new friends. And this will be really interesting to talk with our panel at the end about what they found to be the most challenging. And it might be a little bit surprising of what their answers are in terms of things that were hard for that transition. Excellent, thank you. How to prepare for high school. So some of the most basic ones that are really important to skip over: updating your records. Hopefully we've had an anaphylaxis emergency plan in the past. You can download them directly off foodallergycanada.ca, and it's just a way to have all of that key information: the allergens, what to look for in a reaction, where they keep their medicine, who to call in an emergency. That changes every year, so it's important to update that and make sure it's part of your school file in this new environment. To have auto injectors in date, ready for the year. I know that there's been some shortage issues, so if you have any more questions about that, get in touch with Food Allergy Canada directly. We have a lot of info on that, but it's really important that you have them with you, not in your locker. As we pointed out, you can be pretty far away from your locker at times. So to have a strategy, whether it's on a belt, in a bag, in a purse, in a clutch, have it with you. It's important to know the school policies, whether it's not only just the provincial policies or guidelines, but is there something on the website of the high school? Many have some type of code or guideline or book for students, and that might be a part of it. So great to review that too. Important to make yourself known right at the start. It's not something that you want to spring up on your high school halfway through the year. It's really important that you schedule a meeting, send an email, get in touch, make sure it's you're known, your allergies are known with the correct people, the administration, school nurse, whoever it may be in that case. And also just starting now, visualizing tough situations. And tonight will be a good way to do that when our panel brings up some of the tough situations they've encountered. And whether it's a team dinner where you want to balance that social aspect, not standing out, but staying safe. How to do a class trip? Do you just go with the flow, or is there a way where you can help be a part of the organizing of that trip to make sure you go to places where you can eat and feel comfortable at? So those are the type of things to start thinking about early, so you're not caught off guard when they do happen. Telling others is a really, really important way to prepare and be ready for high school. And I bet a lot of you have a lot of friends from elementary school that you'll be going to high school with, and that's wonderful. They know about your allergies. But high school is really a time when you make a lot of new friends as well. And it's important that you inform them right away about your allergy and what to do in an emergency. And if they're not on board with it, this is the time when you find your real friends and the people that support you. And allergies, if they're a part of you, then and your friends, they support you. They need to have your back. So that's really important that your friends, they are on board and you're not being embarrassed about it, because it is what it is. A lot of people have food allergies, so you got power in numbers. It's important your teachers know. It's a great way to build bonds with teachers. So you're not just another face in the crowd, but you're someone that they know, someone that yeah, they're aware of. Your coaches, very important, they know, and where you keep your epinephrine when you're in practice, in a game setting. So sometimes there's water bottles going around, there's food going around and power bars and all that. So it's important coaches know, absolutely. And cafeteria staff. I remember my cafeteria um, uh, staff well from having many conversations with them about ingredients and cross contamination. And I found a couple things I was comfortable with. Obviously, not all with my big list of allergens. So it's up to you how you inform people. Obviously, I know it's just important to fit in and be cool, but at the same time, it's really important that you do it in a way that you're comfortable with. Whether you want to use humor, whether you want to be very serious, whether you want to use all the facts you can. There's many ways. There's no exact right or wrong way to inform people about your allergies, but I always say if you take your food allergies seriously, other people will take your food allergies serious. So that's really key thing to remember. And another really important point is not to face a reaction alone. And I have to admit, I've been guilty of this, where you almost feel like you've done something wrong if you do have a reaction. You ate something you shouldn't have. Maybe you took a risk and you regretted it, and then you felt something. There's something inside of us that makes us just kind of, want to run. And the last thing you want to do is that. You don't want to go alone to a washroom. You don't want to just excuse yourself without telling anybody. That's why you built that support. Your friends should know about it. Let them know that, if I ever do something funny or seem odd, double check with me that I'm okay, because sometimes I'm not thinking straight when I have a reaction, and it's important you let your friends know the same. Class trips, and this is something that you probably did a lot of in elementary school, but there might be some very exciting new trips, farther locations in high school, maybe going to another country on exchange or whatnot. So that's a really big area. With day trips, bringing your own food is a great way to stay safe, informing about your allergies to whoever's coordinating the trip. And then when you get into overnight trips, this is really important, where you actually kind of get into the planning if you can. At least ask what are the details in advance, and provide suggestions, because perhaps it's the first time they made a trip where someone had your allergen specifically. So you might be able to help teachers or staff plan that out. And yeah, telling others while you're on the trip is obviously really important. You know, Finding out as much information about that destination, whether it's overseas. We have a lot of resources on Food Allergy Canada's website on travel, and I would advise to really dig into there if you are going to other places. In terms of social, this is a really huge issue. This is high school after all, so very, very important to cover. And just dining out with friends, whether in the cafeteria or in the hallway, going out at night to a restaurant together. It's really important that they know about your allergies, and you're not skipping over anything that you would have normally said, even though at times it might feel like a burden when everyone's ordering really quickly. I'll have chicken wings, chicken wings, chicken wings, and then you have to pull the wait staff aside to tell them your spiel. It's still really important to do that. And people, it doesn't matter what other people think. You got to do this, and that's all that counts. And if they're your friends, they'll get on board with you. Dances, another very new situation. You might have had high school dances. I remember mine were on, girls and guys were on both sides of the gym. High school, it's a little bit more together in the middle, I guess you could say. And I remember there was some food at some of the dances I was at, and so just being, all those precautions, your epinephrine's still with you, even if you're not anticipating food being there. But it's also important. Partying is also a new situation where it's a step up from birthday parties, if you will, where there might be some different parties where there's different risks involved. And it's great to get in touch with the host if you can in advance. Ask them, is there going to be food? Can I offer to bring food that might help lower the risk? And when you get there, take a look at the room. What are the risks there, and how can you stay safe? Is it avoiding a certain area, washing your hands, you name it. Kissing is also a very important topic at this age, where I would just leave it at, it's really important to inform a new friend, a new date early about your food allergies, because it can get a little bit awkward if you tell them, mid-kiss, or ask them what did they eat today earlier on, or I smell peanut butter on your breath. You want to make sure they know well before that point so you can avoid that moment. And most people, they know someone with a food allergy. So when you tell them, this is probably nothing big to them, nothing new, and they'll be pretty interested in knowing what they can do to help you out. And overall, avoiding that allergen for a great period of time beforehand, brushing their teeth, these are all helpful ways to mitigate that risk. And alcohol and drugs. And with alcohol, cross-contamination is a big risk. I know if there's a bottle going around a party, if someone's ate one of your allergens and touching it and sharing it, that can be a risk. We all know cannabis is legal now in Canada, so a shared joint can be a risk with cross-contamination as well. So these are things that you really need to be on top of. Also, impaired judgment, where obviously alcohol, drugs, they do impact your judgment overall. So that's really important to keep in mind, that you're telling the people that you're partying with, and you're keeping a limit. You're not going overboard, because you do have a very serious condition you have to manage as well. Also important to remember ingredients of different alcohol. Different gins perhaps have different, or liqueurs have different allergens in them, perhaps. Really important to know what's in it. And then you have cannabis edibles, which will be fully legal in Canada, I think, in December. So you're going to have different treats and things with different labeling at that point, which is going to be very important to keep on top of. I wish this was not a reality, but unfortunately, bullying is something that's important to cover, because it is unfortunate reality of having food allergy. And it might be bullying, it might be teasing, but if you're feeling uncomfortable with something that someone is saying to you, it's important that you speak up and you use your voice and you tell people when it is not appreciated or wanted. And if it is getting to a point where it's getting too serious, it's absolutely imperative you get help and speak up. Tell a teacher, your guidance counselor, or someone in the admin at your school. But I would say one of the best things you can do in high school is just get involved as much as you can. And our panelists will really show you how involved you can be. It's amazing what they're doing. But it's your opportunity to create your identity. And your identity does not have to be that you have food allergy. That's one part of you, but doesn't have to define you. So whether it's sports or clubs or activities or student council, there's so many things that actually are going to start creating this really unique set of skills and knowledge for you. So take advantage of it right from day one. There's a lot going on in high school. Food Allergy Canada, we created a really neat program where if you want to raise awareness for your high school, there's something called the High School Allergy Awareness Challenge. And it's a whole suite of tools where you just literally sign up, download everything, and you could run it with, if you have an allergy club, your students council, you and a bunch of friends. Essentially, there's a couple games. Adopt an Allergy, where you can make it a fundraiser for your school, a food allergy spelling bee, try to spell anaphylaxis in other words, and then food allergy Jeopardy. So some really fun ways to engage people and learn about allergy. And at the end of the day, you're creating a really supportive environment of peers at your school. So a really cool program that you can sign up, download at allergychallenge.ca. Other resources that we have that can be helpful, it's called the Ultimate Guidebook for Teens with Food Allergies, and it really is. We have, I think, 21 chapters, and it covers the gamut of how to stay safe with food allergies. You can read it online for free. There's I believe, an ebook on our website under the teen section. You can order the physical book from Amazon. So that's a wonderful resource, and it's all written by teens, just telling stories of what it's really like and how they managed all of these situations. So can't recommend that book enough. We have Allergy Allies, which is a mentorship program for youth with food allergies. It's for ages 11 to 14. And with that program, 12 to 15. And with that program, you're teamed up with other adolescents your age, and you have someone who's older, an older teen that answers your questions about food allergies, helps you out. And it's just a really cool way to meet up every week online with a group and chat, have some fun, and yeah, sometimes vent. And then below, we have a picture of some of our wonderful members of our youth advisory committee. And if you are in high school, entering high school, you need volunteer hours. And this is a great way to earn volunteer hours and also give back by sharing your knowledge and experience about food allergy. And we have a lot of different things that we do throughout the year. We have a video series coming up. We have different resources where you get to earn volunteer hours just by helping us out at Food Allergy Canada. So more info on our website, and we're always looking for new members for that. So please feel free to reach out. That being said, it is time for the real stars of the show to come out. It's time for our panel discussion, and I want to introduce our panelists, who are Maeve and Firas. So Maeve is age 15 with allergies to egg, peanut, and tree nut. And Maeve, I'd love to start with you. Maybe you can kind of just give us a little bit of information about you in high school. What do you love to do in high school? What are some of the activities you're up to?
So I'm Maeve. I go to high school in Nova Scotia, and for me, I really like to be involved sports-wise at school. I play hockey, soccer, ping pong, badminton, track, and softball. But I also love to be on committees such as show committee, headstrong, class rep, and I am also going to be an international student ambassador this year. So allergies really shouldn't limit you to what you do in high school.
Amazing how involved you are. That's wonderful. That's amazing that your high school offers so much, but a lot of high schools do. So good for you, Maeve. You're taking advantage of it all. And our second panelist is Firas, who is 14, allergic to milk, egg, peanut, fish, and soy. And Firas, I'll ask the same question to you. What are some of the things that you're involved with at high school?
So at high school, I'm involved with a couple of clubs like the robotics club, charity club. I'm also next year going to be part of the student council as a treasurer. And outside of school, I do martial arts every week.
Wow, unbelievable. You're very busy too. I'm very jealous that there's a robotics club. I wish that was around when I was in high school. We had a breakdancing club, and unfortunately, I think I just broke things on my body during that club. It didn't really go too well. So let's get into some questions for our panel, because I know they have a lot of really great insight from being right in high school. So my first question for them is, what was the biggest change for you when you transitioned from elementary school into high school? Maeve, what was it for you?
So for me, the biggest change was going from a school that did not allow my allergies in the school to going to a school that my allergies were allowed. So I made the executive decision to not eat in the cafeteria for my own safety. I didn't want to run into any uncomfortable situations, and I wanted to eliminate any possible risks.
Wow, thanks for sharing that. And that's a great strategy. And Maeve goes to a high school in Nova Scotia where, yeah, just interesting to hear. In that school, that's their policy that all food is allowed. So I love that you've taken it upon yourself to stay safe in a way that's comfortable for you. And for us, what was the biggest change for you when you transitioned to high school?
So the biggest change for me was in terms of responsibility. So in elementary school, my homeroom teachers would usually be responsible for carrying my epinephrine and also making sure that the other kids in my class wouldn't bring or eat food that I couldn't have. But in high school, I had to be completely responsible for myself. While the school office staff is aware of my allergies and has them on record, a lot of the teachers don't know or didn't know about them until I let them know.
Good for you. And I'm curious, how did you let them know? What would you say to a teacher? Now, or maybe even when did you tell them, and how did you say it?
So usually uh, times like in sometimes in class parties or just in general, just letting them know that I have allergies, just in casual conversation.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that. All right, the next question, and this was one of the poll questions that we had earlier about what's the thing you're most worried about in terms of challenges, and I think new environment was number one. So here's the question for our panel: what was the most challenging experience for you when you started high school? So Maeve, what was it for you?
So for myself, getting used to my classmates and other students being able to eat whatever they wanted was really difficult for me. As I mentioned, at my elementary school, my allergens weren't allowed, so they weren't ever present, and food wasn't allowed in the classroom. Now in high school, for me, some classes allow food, and high school gets you prepared for the real world after high school where you can't control where your allergens are present. So it is good practice for me, especially where I'm going into grade 11 and will be graduating in a few years and going to university. I'm getting used to having my allergens present and um, learning new ways to avoid coming in contact with my allergens.
That's really very insightful, Maeve, and I think that might be a surprising thing for a lot of people to learn that in some high schools they might really restrict what food comes in, and yours that's not the case. And I think at the end of the day, like as you said, there's preparing for the real world, and I think the big key takeaway in your answer is that um, that transition can be very, very sudden from a very controlled environment to all of a sudden not so controlled. And that's why it's so important that you're prepared in advance, you're visualizing, you're thinking of what you're going to do. For you, you kind of avoided the cafeteria, you found your own spots to eat. And for some people, that it might not be so sudden. There might be more policies in place with food. So this is why it's so important to understand what's going on in your school before you get there, plan accordingly. But I hand it to you, Maeve. You sound like you're doing a great job staying safe and preparing accordingly. So wonderful. And Firas, what for you? What was the biggest challenge?
So for me, the biggest challenge was more like the social aspect. So my friends sometimes would eat out or order food. There's sometimes we would have class parties, and because there's food I couldn't have at the class parties or the food that we were ordering, obviously I wouldn't be able to eat. I could feel left out a bit, but I didn't want to take the risk of eating anything from outside, so I would bring my own food that would be close to or the same as what the others were having, and it lessened the pressure a lot. Other times, though, I decided to be patient because obviously safety is first, and that's what I had to keep in mind.
An awesome strategy. You don't want to be left out and bringing your own food. And that's at the end of the day. I love your attitude for us. It's just food. At the end of the day, you want to hang out with your friends and have all those same experiences. So you're finding a way to do that just by bringing your own food and making sure that you're in control of those risks. So thumbs up to you. Really great way to do it. And then the other question I have for our panel before we'll just break it into open questions. So still feel free to put it into the question box. We'll get to it soon. Tips for parents. I I would just imagine there's a couple parents on the webinar today. So what advice would you give? Advice would you give to parents about preparing their son or daughter for high school? Maybe what would be your top tip?
So my top tip is realizing that it's not always going to be easy, but make sure that your child knows that they can use their voice to stand up for themselves if they're in an uncomfortable situation that involves their allergies or someone doesn't quite understand, that they can use their voice, and it can really help them stay safe.
I love that. It's a great answer. There's so much pressure to just fit in and be a part of the crowd in high school, but there's some non-negotiables. And when it comes to allergies, as you said, use your voice. Be confident. Um, you've got this, and nothing really changes in terms of that. It's just a new environment. You got to maintain that vigilance and confidence. So that's wonderful. For us, what would be your main tip for parents?
So first, my first tip would be continue to support your son or daughter, because transitioning from elementary school to high school is difficult especially in the beginning, because of course it's a new environment. And also keep reminding them to take their epinephrine with them. As an example, my mom asks me every morning before we leave for school if I have it with me, just to make sure.
Oh, your mom is wonderful. But here's my question for you, for us. That's a wonderful, wonderful tip, to just for parents out there, stay vigilant, because as much as you want them to be responsible for their own allergies, they're probably going to need a little bit of push and shove a little bit here and there. But for us, I guess my question to you, what do you do to help yourself out in that situation? Do you do anything that makes your mom or dad feel confident that you've got this, that you're remembering your epinephrine? So it sounds like you've got it all under control. So do you kind of tell them, yep, I've always got it, here's where I store it, I'm always asking these questions? Do you kind of like reassure them like that?
Yeah, that's pretty much what happens.
Awesome. Well, I'm quite a few years older, and my mom still gets on me too. So one of those things that I'm still trying to find the answer to, that of how to prove I'm responsible. But it all comes from love and a very good spot that we all just want to be keep everyone safe. So wonderful job to our panel so far, and let's open it up to questions from everybody attending tonight. So I'm going to look at some that you've submitted so far, which is, oh wow, a whole bunch so far. So yeah, here's a great one to start off with. How do you carry your epinephrine? So Firas, do you want to start off? How do you carry it around high school?
So I carry my epinephrine in a pouch in my backpack, and I make sure that my backpack's always on me wherever I go, and I make sure that I'm I make sure that I don't lose my epinephrine. That's the most important thing.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's key. Always have it on you. And Maeve, where do you have it on?
For myself, I always carry my epinephrine in a pouch around my waist. I'm constantly on the go, and I'm always moving around the school. And some places aren't allowed, you're not allowed to bring your backpack into the certain rooms. So for me, it's just as easy to have it on my waist. That way I know I always have it with me.
With all the activities that you're doing, that's a really solid plan. You must be everywhere in the school. That's great. And then we've had a couple questions here about bullying, and maybe we can kind of combine a few here. Have either of you ever experienced kind of that negative teasing or bullying? And have you found that there's more of it as you get older in high school, or less? So Maeve, do you want to start with that one?
I have personally experienced bullying because of my food allergies. I found more so that it was in the younger grades. I just found fellow classmates didn't understand it as much as they do now. I've really made an effort to make sure that my classmates and fellow students know about my allergies. So that's why I personally haven't experienced it as much in high school, I find.
Wonderful. Just using your voice. And for us, do you have anything to add to that regarding bullying and food allergy?
Um, I would say that when I was in elementary school, sometimes some of the younger kids who didn't quite understand it, at the time would ask, usually, why aren't you coming to eat with us, stuff like that. Um, but other than that, especially as I went into middle school and high school, fortunately, I haven't experienced any types of bullying regarding my allergies. Everybody is very, inclusive.
Oh, it's great to hear. And it sounds like you've got a really good crew around you, a lot of friends from elementary school, some new ones that you've explained to in high school. That's great. Um, Another question regarding medical ID. Do either of you wear any type of medical identification, a bracelet, a necklace, medical alert, or others? Firas?
Yes, I used to wear a medical bracelet a couple of years ago.
Gotcha. And Maeve?
Yes, I have a medical alert bracelet, and what I found convenient was when they came with these little ID tag like paper things that kind of look like a business card, and I keep that in my EpiPen pouch, and that like contains all my allergies and contact information on that too.
Oh, handy. Very handy. Excellent. And yeah, I've worn so many variations of them over the years, from necklaces, dog tags, bracelets. And for me, I always found it very helpful for even just starting a conversation, literally wearing your allergies on your wrist, but also, yeah, very important in case anything does happen, people can find out pretty quickly what's going on. Um, this is still kind of related to bullying, but has anybody ever played any pranks related to your allergy or kind of made light of it in that type of physical way? Have you ever experienced that at all, Maeve or Firas?
For myself, it hasn't gone all the way to where it's become a dangerous situation. It's kind of just been verbal. Like, I'm gonna put peanut butter in like your face or kind of thing like that. Um, but that was mainly in the younger grades, and I like to explain to them even at younger age that that's not appropriate, and my allergies are very serious.
So just kind of, there's lower awareness and understanding in some of the early years that kind of contributed to bullying. And Firas, do you have anything to add?
There have been a couple of times where I wouldn't say that there'd be, well, sometimes they have like provoked me by like, hey, grabbing the food, something that I can't have, like it's, say, for example, sandwich allergen, and they were kind of, shoving it in my face. It was, but that again was quite a while ago. Now I think everybody's more understanding, and they, when you're that age, I think you take a lot of things as just a joke, but you realize that it's serious as you get older.
Yeah, as you mature. And like that, as I said, that allergy awareness challenge, that program you can run in your school to raise awareness, that helps too in terms of, some people just never really got the education on food allergy. They don't know anybody, just kind of pass them by. So it's an opportunity for you to help educate everybody in your school, make it a safer environment. I remember at one point I was at a school dance in high school, and someone put an M&M in my mouth, not knowing that it was something I was allergic to, not knowing much. He just thought it was fun going around a dance floor putting M&Ms in people's mouths, and that was a very scary situation for me. But he had no, and it was an opportunity for me to educate him. And to this day, we still talk about that, and he still slaps his head, thinking that he did that. So sometimes it's just a lack of education and not thinking things through. So another interesting question, where just in terms of like, how common is it? Do you guys have friends with food allergies at your high school? How common is food allergy in your high school? For us?
So yeah, I'd say in my class there are a couple of kids, so I'd say 5 or 6 who do have food allergies. They have mostly it's the peanut allergy and nut allergies. So I don't necessarily feel alone, you know, and a lot of them are my good friends too.
Wonderful. Maeve?
So for myself, where I live in Nova Scotia, I go to a really small school. There's only about 250 people in it. Um, so there are only 3 other students in the school who have food allergies. But at my old elementary school, to this day, I still run an allergy peer group, and there's 8 students in that group, and there's a few more in the school who did not participate in it.
Wow, well, good for you for starting that up. What a great initiative. Just another example of something you can do to help yourself out, ultimately, and other students at the school. We'll just do a couple more questions and then we'll wrap it up. There's a couple questions on dating, and in all transparency, I know that we've done webinars and resources specifically on dating in the past with participants who have specifically been okay with sharing that type of information. So I don't want to put our panel too much on the spot here, but in terms of like telling new friends, possibly dating, um, how do you disclose your allergies to someone like that? Do you have any certain um, rules that you have with new people that, whether it's a date, new friend, do you have any insight on that in terms of how do you bridge that gap with someone new that you're getting acquainted with and letting them know that you have food allergies? Firas, do you have any insight on that? How you tell people?
So I haven't dated anyone in the past, but in terms of like new friends, usually that kind of conversation comes up when, of course, we're you know, eating food, or you know, someone notices the epinephrine injector, or usually the medical alert bracelet as well. And then I just explain to them that, hey, I have food allergies. I can't have these foods. And that's pretty much it. Just let them know.
Wonderful.
You know.
Maeve, anything to add?
Um, I would say that I agree. That's one of the reasons I like wearing my EpiPen around my waist, because it can spark conversation with new people, because they may notice it or may notice my medical alert bracelet, which was mentioned, but I just really strongly agree with that, in different ways of starting conversation.
Excellent. And you know, the whole topic of dating with a food allergy, we have a lot on there, especially that guidebook I mentioned before. It is excellent. There's a few chapters that are all kind of around that whole topic of dating, and a lot of stories and tips from teens that have gone on dates and with food allergies that have insight to share. So really recommend, if you're curious and more about that whole sphere, to keep reading on about it, because we have info that's great. So I think I'll wrap up the question period. We've had a lot of great questions come in. I know there's people have been asking, are there future dates for the same session? Do we get a copy of this slide deck? Well, we will be posting an archive version of this on our website on YouTube, which is youtube.com/foodallergycanada. Should be up in the next day or so, so you can watch this again and again to jot down more of the info that we went over today. And we will have more webinars in the future, so just stay tuned on Food Allergy Canada's website, sign up for updates on our newsletter. But I want to thank our panel for being wonderful. Maeve and Firas, you guys were absolutely incredible answering questions and providing really great insight. And you kind of made me wish I was young again and in high school, because it sounds like a whole lot of fun and you guys are making the most of it with your food allergies. So 2 thumbs up to our panel. They're absolute allergy all-stars, so way to go. So just to wrap up, ultimately, food allergy is a time where, as you learned tonight, it's not just about managing a food allergy, it's about finding your voice, finding your crew, finding who you are. There's a lot of different opportunities that come up in high school. It's a time for growth. and allergies do not have to slow you down at all nor define you. So stay safe, but enjoy all the opportunities and make the most of some of the most wonderful years in your life. If you want any more information about high school or any other topics related to allergy, please visit our website, foodallergycanada.ca. And if you go /youth, you will get a lot more information about high school, some of our youth programs, and all of that. So please check that all out. We're on all of those, all of the major social media as well, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So a lot of good stuff there too. But I want to thank you all for attending today's webinar, and I hope you found it really helpful in preparing for the high school years. And I wish you a very successful and safe fall as you head back to school. Thank you very much, and have a great night.